first panel discussion will focus on fintech. So we invited about 5 guests, including the moderator, CEO and co-founder of WapiPay, Ndichu, co-founder of Carbon, Chijioke, Dozie, CEO of Applink, Hadi Guo, Managing Director of Africa at OnePoint Group, Thierry, Lacroix, co-founder and CEO of Mina Mobile, Eric Wan, to join this panel to discuss the fintech sector on the next phase of Middle East and Africa. Let's welcome them. And I will leave the time to you guys to liaise on your own.
All right. Thank you, Laura. Thank you to all the panelists who have managed to join today. I think I can see all the panelists for this particular discussion have joined in. Thank you all. I want to thank Laura and Vincent and Future Hub for this opportunity and this discussion. And organizing this venture summit of emerging markets, and specifically speaking an opportunity to speak about fintech and fintech in Africa, more so fintech in Africa. In this moderation session, I'll introduce my panelists. I'll give a quick brief of who they are, and then I will fire to them a few questions. And we hope we get as much information about fintech in Africa and fintech in general from them and from their experiences and what they're doing in Africa. I want to appreciate the previous presentation by Dr. Jeffrey. I think I won't belabor the point on the opportunities around fintech, especially in Africa. But one key and major thing to note is one of the fastest growing innovation through technology in Africa has been in financial technology or fintech, and more so around mobile money. And it's a pretty decent coincidence. The lack of access to financial services in Africa, combining with the high penetration of mobile phones, or the growing penetration in access to a mobile phone, combining together to offer one of the biggest innovations globally, which is mobile money, and we can attest to the successes across regions and different countries in Africa, and more so especially in Nairobi, Kenya, where I am today. Allow me to introduce myself first. My name is Ndichu. I am the co-founder and CEO of WapiPay. WapiPay is a 1-year-old startup in fintech, and looking and focusing on transforming African suppliers into Asian merchants and making Asian suppliers into African merchants. What do I mean by this? We simply want to do this by offering a very convenient and easy way to make a payment between Africa and China, and between Asia and Africa. Today, not to belabor the point, according to the Ministry of Commerce and People's Republic of China, the Africa imports from China are currently valued at $104 billion US. And Africa small and medium enterprises, or SMEs, source up to 50% of their goods from China. We see in the past 10 to 15 years, significant dependency for goods and services between Africa and China. And what we do at WapiPay is transform the narrative from remittances to global payments. And the unfortunate thing is, when you look at the definition of remittances, it has been for Africa largely about sending money home. If you look at the Canada, US, Europe corridor, it has largely been inbound transactions coming into Africa, or value coming into Africa. But for WapiPay, and what we see is the growing need, or the growing relationship between Africa and China, and the outbound flows of payments and the need for payments that are valued at 104 billion as of last year, 2019, and the need for the trade and the activity around trade between the two corridors. What's interesting is that largely a lot of this has been happening through banking institutions, and they do not hold as much data as we're seeking in terms of understanding or better understanding the need for trade and the need for the relationship between Africa and China, and what exactly are Africans importing, and can we open African merchants and African suppliers to the Asia corridor, to the Chinese consumer market, to be able to grow. So I'll quickly introduce my panelists. We have Chijioke Dozie, the co-founder of Carbon. He's been very busy. He's the CEO of OneFi, or One Finance and Investment Limited, a pioneer and a fintech provider in West Africa, and more so in microloans in Nigeria. Previously worked for IFC and has an MBA from Harvard Business School and a master's in risk management from the University of Reading. We have Hadi Guo, Guo, a good friend of mine. I think we bump into each other here in Nairobi every now and then. He's the CEO of Applink and previously worked for Huawei and has significant experience in telcos and set up Applink, I think, from here in Nairobi, Kenya. I believe we have Eric Wang. I'm not sure if he's joined us, but he's the co-founder and COO of Mena Mobile. Graduated from the UK, Newcastle Business School. Previously worked for Lenovo, NQ Mobile, Soho Chagyu, Our Game. You know, a pretty round up professional in technology. And then finally we have Thierry Lacroix, the managing director of Africa One Point. He's been in Africa way too long. We need to kick him out. Has been in advisory quite significantly across Africa, spent a lot of time in West and Central Africa, working with the ministries and governments, trying to lead transformation, and he knows about how to do business in Africa. So welcome, gentlemen. I'll start off or kick off with a quick request on a quick question during our panel. So in a sentence, maybe we can start with Thierry. What problems are you and your business focusing on to solve in Africa?
Thank you, Eddie. And I'll try to stick around a little more regarding my engagement regarding Africa. But I'm actually based in Paris, in France, which is still a major hub actually regarding Africa, especially Francophone Africa. And hopefully in the near future on a more Pan-African level. Anyway, so OnePoint is a global consultancy firm, and with one key challenge that we're trying to focus on is transformation. You talked about it, Eddie. I think we've talked about it a lot already, but transformation is key. The way we see it is transformation beyond the obvious, which is our signature. And it's what I mean by that is by creating new ways of working, new spaces, and innovative economic models through our clients, both public and private sector in Africa, mainly through technology and digitalization. And in this time that we've seen, it's even more crucial to bring back digital and technology sovereignty to the benefit of the African continent. So I'll stop here. You asked for one sentence, and we'll have more further discussions. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Thierry. Over to Hadi Guo. In one sentence, what problems are you or your business focusing on to solve in Africa? Guo, I think we have a challenge with your microphone. We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay. Let me change the voice. Wait a moment. Okay.
Okay.
So hello everyone, my name is Hadi from Applink. I'm very happy to join this meeting with all of you today. Our company have started mobile cash loan business in Africa for half a year. There are still many challenges and problems we are meeting right now. But today, I only want to share the top two challenges what we have. Okay, so the first one is about how to quickly learn and understand the African culture. As we know, if we want to build a great local brand that people trust, design a nice product that people like, and manage our local team with the high working efficiency under the right way, we really need to understand the local culture deeply. Yeah. But as a foreigner, you know, we need to have our time, our way to learn how to get this local culture. Yeah. So I think that this is the first one is a challenging for us. Yeah. And the second one is about how to get the correct news on the policy from the local regulators in time. We are doing mobile cash loan business in Africa. Fully understand and follow the policy from the local regulators in time, which is the most important thing for us. Without getting the news on the policy in time, maybe we will meet bigger problems or trouble on the business. So I mean the local regulator is not only including, for example, like a central bank, but also it means like a tax officer, human office created in for a company also. Yeah. For example, if our policy comes out from central bank, consider the impact of people's work and life from a disease. Within 3 months, people no need to pay back their money, the loan to the bank or fintech company. If we can get this news in time, then we have time and we can do some business adjustment as soon as possible on the right way. So in different African countries, how to get, as a foreigner, how to get the correct local process or networks in order to get the correct news on the policy from the local regulators in time. It becomes very important and challenging for us. Yes, especially this year, the special time.
Thank you, Guo. That's really well summarized, and thank you for introducing Applink. I think over to Mr. Wang, Eric Wang. Just very briefly introduce yourself, and in a sentence, you know, with Mena Mobile, what problems are you and your business focusing on to solve in Africa?
All right, thanks, Eddie. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, so it's really a great honor to be here. So I just give a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Eric Wang. It's from Mena Mobile, which is one of a mobile internet company based in the MENA region. So we're engaged in digital marketing and mobile gaming, and also the mobile payments. So we have started our business since 5 years ago. When we have published more than 5 or 6 strategy games or MMORPG games already in the MENA region. So basically, we have our game is really popular in the local, especially for GCC country and also for Egypt. But the main point for me, also for this industry, is the mobile payments. So all of our developers, we need the speed, convenience, and safety online payments as the MENA, you know, consumers wish. And this is a big challenges for the payments. And number 2, I just want to highlight more about the localizations. Yes, because this is Arabic languages, you know, is really, you know, a difference, you know, especially from the English words or like the Chinese words, it's totally different. So how to do leverage the culture between the Chinese team and also the Arabic teams, that is really challenges as well. But I think today I just want to highlight more about, you know, the business, because our business is more based on the Arabic world. So I can just give some more, you know, otherwise for ideas, I'll be more focused on the GCC countries. All right, so thanks all.
Thank you, Eric. And of course, the conversation today at Venture Summit for Emerging Markets is not just Africa, but also Middle East. And we appreciate the work Mena Mobile is doing and trying to do to apply technology in these economies. Finally, get to Bwana Chijioke, if you can introduce yourself and let us know in a sentence what problems you and your business are focusing to solve in Africa.
Thanks, Eddie. Carbon is a Pan-African digital bank. We're focused on, so we're operating in Nigeria and we're also operating in Kenya. The goal is to provide cheap, affordable banking services to Africans in diaspora. So our goal is, if you are a customer in Carbon in one country, you're a customer in Carbon across all the markets. We started in Nigeria in 2012. We launched in Ghana in 2019. In Kenya in 2019. We're launching in Ghana. If not for COVID, we're actually looking to expand to Egypt and Cote d'Ivoire this year. So so the goal is, we think that legacy banking is broken in Africa. Banks do not make banks, particularly in West Africa, and do not make banking services available to customers in an affordable way. And what Carbon does is goes in with low-cost banking, using algorithms to actually provide loans, to provide investments, transactions, payments, card services to the mass consumer.
Thank you, Chijioke, and thank you all of you. I think it's very clear what your role across Middle East and Africa is. Our conversation today is around fintech, and I want to ask the panelists, what especially of course in Middle East and Africa, what areas do you see, or what challenges do you see in adoption of technology, or in your application of technology and the things that you do across those two regions? And do you find that is the consumer, or is it the business that will adopt technology, or what challenges are there in the region adopting technology, and more so for the purposes of you delivering whatever your business or the challenges you're trying to solve? So I'll begin with you, Chijioke, where we left off. Maybe you can tackle that first question.
Thanks. So look, in terms of challenges of adopting technology, I think it's literacy and affordability. In certain markets that we operate in, a smartphone is still out of the reach of a lot of consumers. And if you look at a lot of fintech and tech products, they require consumers to have a smartphone. But I think with recent entrance into the African smartphone market, the likes of Techno that are trailblazing across Africa and bringing the cost of technology down, I think we were seeing more adoption and embracing of technology. I'll say one thing. When we started, Carbon's platform is only available on either an Android or an iOS. And when we started, people felt that, well, how can you make this product available on an Android smartphone? The bulk of the consumers use feature phones. But when you're giving the customer something they've never had, they're prepared to do something they've never done before. So what we actually had were people who didn't have smartphones, but were buying one because if they wanted a loan, the banks weren't going to give them a loan, but Carbon and other companies would give them a loan. So I'm sure, like in Kenya, you're seeing more people using smartphones so they can actually access a lot of these services that they could not access before. And I think post-COVID, you're going to see an increase in digital adoption. I mean, don't know about what's going on in some of your markets, but in Nigeria, after the lockdown, you saw massive lines from banks where people were queuing up to renew their debit card, things you can do online, and they clearly want a digital option. So we think that consumers will adopt new technologies, especially if it's doing something that's never been done before for them.
Do you, just in summary, do you feel that who's going to adopt technology faster? Is it businesses or consumers?
I think consumers. Yeah.
So the market is ready for consumer solutions. Fantastic. Thank you, and for the great work you're doing for Carbon. I think there's always been an argument about adoption in technology. I think what you said on never had, never done, that's very powerful. Can the services you offer convince consumers to move from, to upgrade or adopt new technology such as smartphone away from an ongoing debate about USSD and SMS. But I'd like to pick up Thierry here and basically, you know, just from the same question, from your experience with Africa, where do you see the challenges in adoption of technology? And do you feel that it is consumers or businesses that are going to adopt technology? Where do you think the opportunity is?
Thank you. I think the first thing that I would say is highlight the diversity of the market. Again, we've been talking about two major markets, mainly Nigeria, Kenya. We've talked about Egypt a tiny bit. Of course, the big elephant in the room, South Africa. Although Nigeria is probably the biggest one right now. But you have big other markets such as the DRC with 80 million inhabitants, and then you have another 45 of the countries. So diversity is key when it comes to Africa. So talking about Africa as a whole in general, and including in terms of technology, literacy, of affordability, is very diverse. So let's keep this in mind because it's very different. Again, if you talk whether you're talking about South Africa, Nigeria, or the Maghreb region, or West or Central Africa, Central Francophone Africa, which is sometimes lacking behind in terms of at least economic diversification. So that's the first thing, is diversity. Let's keep this in mind. Second of all, I think what that technology brings is this, of course, we keep talking about leapfrog in Africa, but it is true when you see it on the ground, is this incredible opportunity that technology brings to various services. We talk about fintech right now. We talk mostly about payment, remittances, financial inclusion, but it brings way more than this. This is why my ambition is to also focus at one point on corporate transformation, because I think, and this is answering your second question, is actually consumers, I think, are ready or have already tackled the technology challenge. And it is actually now the business challenge to incorporate technology, to have CTOs and on their board, which is still pretty rare, especially in Francophone Africa, to tackle these new challenges, these new opportunities. The second thing that we're looking at, we call it wise cities and places. You call it smart cities if you want to. But so technology brings it through payment, through financial inclusion. It also brings new urbanization opportunities. And finally, when you look at the public sector, and we're trying to focus on this also, is bringing in new services, digital services, to the benefit of the population. We're currently, for example, working in Abidjan on the cadastre, so the registry, land registry, through digitalization, to leapfrog and to enable, and it has impact not just on financial inclusion, but it has an impact on taxes, it has an impact on customs, it has an impact on international investment into Abidjan for this specific case. So what I believe in is that technology currently, and this is something that we're talking about with donors, international donors, since COVID, they finally included and understood, I should say, that technology, digitalization is an essential services. And this is an amazing opportunity for all of us, investors and operators or industrial operators in Africa.
Thank you, Thierry. I think that's very well summarized. I'll jump to Mr. Wang, Eric Wang. Just around the same question around adoption in technology, as you've seen in the Middle East, and more so, is it consumers or businesses adopting technology? I don't know if you offer any of your services on USSD or on SMS in the Middle East, and where do you see the opportunities and challenges for adoption in technology?
All right, basically, based on our business, MENA Mobile, so we have a two-line business line. First one is 2B business. The other one is 2C consumer business. So from my perspective, so for this region, their infrastructure for technology is really well, like, a smart device, like transmission on the speed of internet, everything's be shining. But the only thing that we need to do focus on is the contents, especially for the pen entertainment contents. Let's talk about you know, the MENA market. Let's talk about the banking. You know, from my experience in this region, there's no shortage of banking and finance services. There are thousands of banks. Even for Dubai, you know, there are approximately to the 50 banks, like international banks or local banks. But you know, there, how to say, almost every country and entire finance industry have undergone major IT technology changes to providing convenience finance service for the user. But however, you know, there's a large number of non-banking users in this region. Like a financial policies here is not, you know, inclusive financial policy adapting like in China. So a large number of users cannot join the finance, the very creative finance services in this region. So like especially, you know, for the young generations, they don't like a more, you know, how do I say, conservative and no creative services for financial institution now. So in contrast, the fintech companies which can enter to the needs of users and meet the expectations of consumers. And from the business perspective, for our business, you know, previously we do the gaming, but now we're more focused on the online, you know, the e-commerce. But only the last point is the user can purchase online. They can give, you know, a lot of orders per day. Even for the GMV, we have very high GMVs. But for the last point, the user cannot make a payment. So for the business, that is really, you know, disastrous. So from my perspective, will be say the technology is really shining in the local, in the, I mean, the GCC country, especially in, you know, Saudi Arabia and UAE country. But for the businessmen, we really need to develop, you know, our application focus on the technologies. And also I think the technology is a core value for, especially for the mobile, you know, applications. So I think for me, I'll be thinking, it's still the challenges, right? I'll be stopping here. So listen to the other panelists. So is there any, you know, any ideas to share? Because it's a really pinpoint for me.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. I think the best way you've summarized it is you want to offer a service digitally, and then the consumer cannot pay. That's a real challenge. And I think what we've seen across Africa, and I think will continue to grow, is when mobile payments infrastructure is developed, that people can conveniently pay from their mobile phones, whether it's value sitting in the phone or value sitting in the bank account. And we've seen a lot of innovations across Africa, and especially in Kenya, have been able to exist because of mobile money. The ability and that question of, I want to offer a service to a consumer. The consumer has a technology. How do I get the consumer to pay? And I think mobile money has gone a long way and will continue to go a long way across the region to allow Africans and consumers to access digital services, whether it's a financial service, whether it's gaming service, whatever it is. So over to you, Mr. Guo. So the question is adoption in technology across Africa or the Middle East. Is it a challenge for you? Is it an opportunity for you? And do you see businesses or consumers across the region adopting technology? Which one do you see adopting technology faster? Sorry, Mr. Guo, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
We can see your lips moving. We can see your lips moving, but we can't hear you. Okay, there you are.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. So technology is one of the core drivers of business innovation and development. I think without our technology support, business cannot provide a good service to customer. So for example, in Kenya market, I think because of Kenya M-Pesa, Safaricom M-Pesa, excellent technology, but people can enjoy the use of some online financial service, such as the money transfer, loans, and deposit. The advantage of technology are safe, real-time, and the simple operation. Regarding the cash loan business, there is also a technology called fast regulation. It can make the loan business operation more safe And even for our loan business, we also have another technology under AI risk analysis. Yes, because of this technology, so we give the loans to the users, and we can get back the loans on time. So all of this, I think, should be contributed by the technology. Yeah, I think.
Fantastic, panelists. So the next question is really around the big challenge the world is going through, the pandemic. The reason why we're all having this conversation, not sitting on the same on the same pedestal or in the same room. Given the pandemic and given of course the conversation today is largely Africa and Asia, Africa and China. Do you feel that the pandemic has been a threat to globalization, and how can technology, in your opinion, accelerate, if not support, the participation of Middle East and Africa in participating in globalization? So I'll begin with you, Thierry, with that question.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's been an incredible opportunity. However, with very strong ifs. It's an incredible opportunity for Africa to rethink its economic model. I'm convinced of this. We had an interesting conversation with the newly elected Secretariat for the Africa Free Trade Agreement, Mr. Wemkele. And this is exactly what he's saying, and I'm convinced of this, is that it's an amazing opportunity to rethink this business model, to rethink the supply chain of Africa, to rethink its diversification, to rethink its economic model, to rethink the actors, the players that should drive and thrive in Africa. However, this needs, there are many challenges that remain. And when we talk about fintech, when we talk about these new opportunities thanks to technology, thanks to digital, there's one key challenge is scale. And again, we have 54 countries in Africa. Scale is both in terms of consumers that you can address, but in terms of geographic diversification also. As you know, you're sitting in Nairobi or in Nigeria right now. I'm not sure you're even looking at, whether it's Morocco, whether it's Benin, whether it's Zambia, whether it's Kenya, or just various countries. So scale is one key issue that we still have to address. And when it comes to diversification, especially geographic diversifications, then you have to handle other issues such as regulation, such as trade, such as free trade zones, economic zones that needs to be more on a regional basis. Another key challenge that I see, and we've touched point on it a little bit, is that, and this is what Carbon is doing, and it's very interesting, is that it's targeted not only to the well-offs, making sure that you address the SMEs, make sure you address the women, make sure you address the young people in Africa that are not necessarily financially included today in all these new opportunities, in all these new technologies that are brought in the various industries across Africa. So these for me are two key challenges that needs to be addressed today.
Thank you, Thierry. And I think for purposes of time and the discussion is fantastic. I want to jump for the rest of the panelists into the next question, which is really around investment and incubation. We know, thanks to one of our sponsors, Future Hub, for the Venture Summit of emerging markets. This is a key area that they focus on, especially in Africa. Where do you, in your opinion, feel, and I'll start with Chijioke, where do you feel the participation of investment and incubation is in supporting whether it's startups or upstarts to use technology to start transforming the lives of Africans?
So from where I sit, look, I see a lot of incubation in lots of African markets. We operate and we visit Rwanda, Kenya, Nigeria. I think, I don't know whether it's controversial. I think there's too much focus on incubation and not a lot on investment. There's so much of these, small isn't necessarily good, and we keep on, everyone wants to be helpful, so let's do an accelerator, let's do an incubation. Where are the big companies, big tech companies in Africa? There's not that many, simply because because everyone just thinks small is good, and they just want to incubate small companies. And Carbon we release our annual reports every year. And we did that because we wanted to, one, transparency is key for us, but it's also to show the world that, you can build African companies of scale here that is comparable to the world. So, one example I love to use is, if you look at the challenger bank in the UK, Monzo has had like $400 million worth of, investments. Carbon's revenues are more than Monzo's, and we've had a fraction of the cost. I think we've had $15 million worth of investment in 8 years. Monzo's had $400 million in 2 years, and yet the revenues are less than $10 million. Ours is 17. So it's, for us, I think investors need, they don't need to, but I think that one, Africa, MENA have the companies and the talent to actually generate, outsized returns. And I think the problem with an incubation is not always the answer. It's don't get me wrong, it's helpful, but that shouldn't be the end of it. Where are the bigger African companies that should scale across countries and maybe across continents? So for me, less incubation, more investments in yeah.
I think you and I can resonate on that, because we're trying even ourselves at WapiPay, I'm sure at Carbon, to raise investment, going past pre-series into Series A. When do we get to see an African startup raise $100 million in Series A? And that's the conversation. I agree with you. More investment. Of course we need incubation, but I think we have significant talent and skills within the continent and the region to be able to build those large businesses can return value for investors. Hadi Guo, are you for investment or incubation? Do you need investment or do you need incubation? We can't hear you, Guo. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I need the investment. Yes, more is better. Yeah.
And Mr. Eric Wang, do you feel, especially in the Middle East, I know you've mentioned about the challenges of the culture and language, but in your business in MENA Mobile and the region, is it more investment or more incubation?
All right, from my perspective, then I think behind every crisis is opportunities. But even for the enterprises, I think some more investment is good. But in this time, the investors not be more dispassionate about the development of the industry or profit model. So then I think the entrepreneurs should be very clearly about your advantages and how to do the business, not only focus on investment. And maybe there's something more opportunities, bigger than the investment. For example, like our business, we're doing the mobile games, e-commerce. So from my understanding, I just want to getting more, I need chance to getting the users' behaviors and getting the local partners will be much better than getting, big investment as well, because we already make profit as we're doing the, mobile internet industry. But I think in this time, for every entrepreneurs will be save money, reduce business, and maintain a healthy cash flow, and from the operations. So even at least until the new investment can come in, right? So for my point is, I'll be more focused on the resources to do, the combinations where leverage, the resources better to, development from our own business. So maybe even then getting an investment. This is my perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. I think I want to ask the final question. I can see Laura pinging me. We've run out of time, but just on the conversation around investment, and I'll begin with you, Thierry. Do you feel within the continent, within the region, given the maturity of our capital markets, would you put your own money into a startup or into a business that has the potential to use technology to transform lives and to grow significantly. Do you feel in that conversation of investment that that investment can come from Africa and not from, of course, San Francisco or Asia or China?
I don't really care where it comes from because you guys need investment. So that's the main point. But yes, I believe that the trend is and should be to increase African investments into the African continent for sure. And there are amazing venture capitalists, private equity funds. I know in the next session you have African Invest, which is one of the top private equity fund investing across Africa and not just in Francophone Africa. And it's 100% African company or business or private equity fund. So yes, it is definitely something that we should highlight, that we should increase, that we should fathom, is this investment in Africa from Africa.
Oh, fantastic. And Hadi Guo, do you feel that you can raise money for your business here in Africa from Africans? Sorry, we can't hear you, Guo.
Yeah, so I think we can start from our business, yes. And we already get the fund from the China, and then we will increase our business in Africa, like from Kenya and Nigeria and Ghana, yes.
Thank you, Guo. Chijioke, do you feel we have, you know, where I come from, I'd rather buy property than invest in a business, to be quite honest. I don't know whether it's a cultural thing or what it is, but do you feel investment can come from Africa?
Yes. So in Nigeria, the same thing. Real estate is you know, prized. People can feel and touch it. But you know, we have all the money we've raised actually has come from Africa, South Africa, Nigeria, and also an Asian family with African roots. So yeah, I think it can be done, and I think it's important that we also get homegrown investors.
Oh, fantastic! And just closing off with Eric Wang. I don't know how your capital structure is, but how do you feel about investment coming from the region where you're operating, say for instance, Middle East?
You know, I think that is a really important things because you know we're very structured and we're founded by the Alibaba in China. But I think if the common is you need to do the business in the globalizations, especially you know your users who using your service based in a GCC country. So it's better getting you know local partners to enhance you know our you know competitive advantages. So I think it's better you can getting the investment from the local. That not only focus on you know the money, that focus on you know the users. So I think that is really useful for our you know enterprises to development.
Thank you, Eric Wang. I think my panelists, I want to thank you sincerely for your time. I think we've had a great conversation about the opportunities in fintech in the region. I think we continue to participate in the summit as other panelists come on. I want to thank Vincent and Laura and Future Hub. I think it's been a great discussion. There's a lot of opportunity in Africa. Fintech or financial technology is the fastest growing opportunity across the region. And we welcome more conversation, discussions, investment, and opportunities to cascade. So I'll hand over back to you, Laura. Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Thierry. Thank you, Hadi Guo. Chijioke, thanks.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.